Hello. Balzac, the Black Sheep. I love modern literature, and I'm an old guy, so for me modern literature is 1920, and anything after that I consider modern literature, and I'm always enthusiastic about it. I don't have any problem with classic literature, it's just that I don't look forward to it as much. Now, if you've been watching the videos for a little while, you may know that last year, in 2021, my favorite novel was Eugénie Grandet by Honoré de Balzac. And on the video that I made, the top 10 books that I want to read in 2022, I chose another, Balzac, The Black Sheep, and probably will be one of the best books that I've read this year as well. It is something amazing for me that a novel that is nearly 200 years old, I think it was published in 1841, 42, the most exciting novel I've read this year. So let me tell you a little bit about the plot. I'm going to have to hold myself back. We begin with the story of Agatha. How would you say that in French? I don't know. Agatha is living in Paris. Her husband has died and she has two children, two boys. The older one is Philippe. He's quite brave and he wants to become a soldier. And there is Joseph, and Joseph is quiet and he wants to be an artist. Now, Agatha loves her first son quite a lot more than the second one because he's brave and he's noble and he goes off and he becomes a soldier and he fights for Napoleon. She is horrified that her son Joseph would choose the debauched career of becoming a painter. Painters are famous for their criminal ways, their poverty, their women and their drink. She is sure that Joseph is choosing the path of decadence, whereas her favorite son, Philippe, is becoming a soldier and he will, win his glory for France. I don't know what happened exactly historically, but for some reason, a regiment of French soldiers were sent to America. It's quite a surprise for me, and I'd like to learn more about that, because it's something I've never heard of. And while Philippe is in America, he becomes, I wouldn't say thoroughly debauched, but it begins in earnest. He takes to drinking liqueurs, he starts smoking tobacco, what's the other one? Smoking and drinking and gambling. He starts to gamble. And so when he comes back to Paris, again, I don't understand the history, but Napoleon has been removed from power and Philippe says that he will not fight for the new. So after Napoleon, there is someone named the Bourbons. I don't know anything about it. Philippe refuses to fight for the Bourbons. He firm defender of Napoleon. Napoleon could do no wrong, and he won't fight for these new people. Basically, that means that he's going to be unemployed. He's hanging around, he's living with his mother and his brother, and every day he gets up and he walks around Paris, he drinks some liqueurs, he plays billiards for money, smoking a lot. If those three vices, the drinking, smoking, and gambling, weren't enough, the fastest way to lose all of your money, he adds a fourth vice, which is, how do I put it? Spending time with women from the theater. And this 100% ensures that he will never have enough money to keep up with his own extravagances. So he begins pilfering from his mother and his brother. They notice that money keeps going missing. It is quite clear that it is Philippe. Philippe is taking money from them. Agatha still loves her son. She blames the government for not giving him an opportunity to make money. And Philippe becomes thoroughly detestable in the fact that he has no scruples about stealing at all. And eventually they have to kick him out of the house after some really disgraceful behavior that was like just edge of my seat. Like, is he going to get away with this criminal scumbag? Is he going to do that to his own family who love him? I'm saving it for you. You must read this book. Don't let it sit on the shelf gathering dust. So they kick him out. Not telling you too much. That is the end of part 1. Perhaps you watched my review that I did of The Sun Also Rises, and something I talked about in that review was how an author moves very fast and then they move slowly and they slow it all down. So part 1 of The Black Sheep just races along. The first 2 chapters, they set up the whole history of Agatha and how she came to be in Paris and what happened to her husband and how he died and how she got left with these two boys. When Philippe becomes a soldier and Joseph becomes a painter, the story is galloping. Agatha has a brother who lives in a village called Issoudun. Her brother received the whole of their father's vast inheritance. So Agatha is going to travel to Issoudun with Joseph to ask her brother for some of her, what she believes is her portion of their father's inheritance. Now, her brother is soft in the head. He's quite a simpleton. He lives with this woman. They just live together. It's not a sexual relation. And she has him completely in her thrall. Like, he is hypnotized. And whenever she wants money from him, all she has to do is just pout for a couple of days, a little bit late serving his breakfast. She treats him coldly, and she just drags the money out of him every time. Agatha's going to Issoudun to try to get money from this addle-minded old man. And that's all I can tell you about the plot. So part 1 is called The Two Brothers. Part 2 is a bachelor's household in the provinces. And then part 3 is who will gain the inheritance. After this incredibly lively book 1 slows down a lot. It really almost grinds to a halt while Balzac begins to tell you the history of this town, Issoudun. But I didn't mind that at all, because part 1 was going so quickly. Like, I read the whole book 1 in one sitting because it was too exciting to put down. Honestly, it was thrilling. Book 2 slows down for a couple of chapters while we learn about all the key players in Issoudun, and then it starts to pick up. And then it picks up even more. When it comes to the climax, you think, okay, I see where this is going, and we're going to get a bit of redemption here, but Balzac has some surprises in store for you. Last year, Eugène Grandet, can't say enough good things about that book. This year, The Black Sheep. I will read a novel by Balzac every year. That is my commitment to Balzac. You know, every year I read 2 plays by Shakespeare. I read a comedy and I read a tragedy. I'm going to add Balzac to my list of authors that I must read every single year, because I think people can be intimidated by Balzac, because the first thing you learn about him is that he wrote a series of novels called The Human Comedy, La Comédie Humaine. It is said that there are 91 titles in this series, which is, well, that's quite intimidating, isn't it? Anyway, that's all by way of saying that you look at Balzac and you see this enormous body of work, and it's like, wow, you know, where do I get started? You know, Balzac died when he was 51 years old, and he did all of this incredible writing. So, you know, like, we don't have to write the books, we just have to read them. Like, think how easy that is for us. We could read a novel in a couple of days. Like, imagine the work, the effort that went into writing this, you know, by hand. They didn't even have typewriters at that point. Well, let's not be intimidated by a vast body of work. Let's look at that and say, okay, let's get started. Like, I'm just taking my first introductory steps into the work of Balzac. I read Old Gaureau, last year Eugène Grandet, this year The Black Sheep, and I've got my Balzac for next year already, Cousin Bette. From now on, every time I go to the used bookstore, I will always check for Balzac, and I will always bring my list of the important books to read. You know, a book nearly 200 years old is better than almost anything I've read this year. The one downside is that I don't know anything at all about the history of France, and Napoleon is just, he's the guy on the horse with the funny hat, right? And I don't know anything about the politics or the history. It's just the politics and the dilemma with why Philippe doesn't want to fight in an army that is not commanded by Napoleon. I don't get that, but I didn't mind that too much. The other thing about it is, in this novel, it's all about money. Similar to Eugène Grandet, that it's all about money. It's the only thing that these characters think about, is how to get more money. I quite like that, because for me that is a very real, tangible desire, this money desire. And you know, these characters are misers, they're hoarding the money, they're trying to make it seem like they don't have as much as they do have. I mean, it just seems so realistic. Although I was thinking today, like, are we obsessed with money today? I think people would say, yes, we are obsessed with money, but I'm not sure. It seems like we're very cavalier about money, or at least where I live in Canada, people are very free and easy about money. Do you think people are obsessed with money? I don't think people are obsessed with money. I think that people are obsessed with, like, status. They want to drive a fancy car, they want to have a big shiny watch, they want to be wearing the latest shoes that the celebrities are wearing. That's like another layer of money. That's not so much being obsessed with money, that's being obsessed with your possessions, your worldly goods, as they are called. Like this hunger for cold hard cash. Perhaps not, perhaps because we use our plastic credit cards and bank cards, debit cards for everything these days. Maybe we've lost that money fixation, I'm not sure. I cannot encourage you enough to get started on Balzac. I can't speak more highly about this author. He's quickly becoming my favorite author of all time. There's just something in Balzac. Like perhaps it's this old style of writing where they do try to give you this very well-rounded novel. Like the first 2 chapters of the book, it is about Agatha's father and why he didn't leave her anything in his inheritance and why he gave it all to her brother. You are getting this very rich background for this character, and it will come to bear eventually. It's just that to begin with, it's a bit, we're really, he's going for the really big picture on this one. It wasn't boring though. It really wasn't boring. And even when I said it slows down in book 2 when they go to Issoudun, not too much. Like in this little village, there are these men, these 20-something-year-old men, and they play pranks at night. They go out and they cause mischief and shenanigans, and they do a bunch of stupid things just to have fun, to do something in a village where nothing happens. They just do all of these stupid practical jokes, and a lot of them are very cruel, would be extremely expensive for the people that they're playing these pranks on. And because that's what they do in the village where there's nothing else to do. Join me in my Balzac obsession. The more I read, the better it gets. So don't think that because it's nearly 200 years old that it's boring, or that it's going to be difficult to read, or it's going to be hard to understand. As I said, I didn't really understand the whole political Napoleonic, but it's okay. I understand. He's a soldier. He wants to fight for this guy, but he doesn't want to fight for that guy. Like that's a very superficial understanding, but it's enough for me to still appreciate the novel, right? 91 novels, so 1 a year, and I've read 3, so that means 88 more years. I might have to start reading 2 a year. There's a link below if you want to buy the book on Amazon. If you click on the link and buy the book or anything else, I get a little sliver of that, but because I couldn't figure out the Amazon tax information, I actually don't get any money. I just get like a gift certificate, which is not bad because I'll probably just use that to buy books anyway. And if you would like to support me and my channel making videos, there's a link to my Patreon page where you can donate a little money every month, and that will also help me out quite a bit. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Grant. This is Grant Loves Books. Yeah.